Hello everybody and welcome to Live Sessions with a GM. My name is Guy and I thank you all for joining me today. Oh, microphone, you're not supposed to be in shot. Go away, go away. There we go, be banned. Right, we've got a very special show for you today because I have a guest with me. Another GM whom I very much admire and who I get to play with weekly without having to take to dinner I'm not going to introduce him. You all know who he is. David Friant from Nerdarchy. David, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here today.
Hey, Guy. How's it going? It's so good for you to be so close, too. And we're going to actually hang out in a couple of weeks. It's really cool.
I'm super excited.
I am Nerdarchy Dave from Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds, just in case you don't know who I am. Good possibility, but hey.
It's unlikely if they watch this channel.
On the shirt.
There we go. There we go. Absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome.
What my underwear says.
That's what your underwear says as well.
Nerdarchy, yeah. Nerdarchy.
That's the
that whole spiel. Nerdarchy Dave from Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds.
There we go. So yes, so Dave will be with us for a little bit in chat for the show today, answering GM questions. So if you've got questions, pose away. Dave is the master of 5th edition rules and lore and all that kind of stuff. So stuff you don't normally ask me, you can ask him. So there we go. We've got a full show today. Lots to go through. We've got questions, your questions, of course. That is the base of it. The base of today's show, lots of questions from you. Remember, if you are asking questions, please put the word question in caps so that I can have a look at it. I will then pass on questions to Dave. So if it's a question for Dave, just write question Dave, question guy, and we'll handle it that way. We've got Q&A. We've got YouTube videos for you to watch. We've got some cool YouTube videos for you to watch. There's some new channels that I've found. Dave was telling me about some really cool channel where people dress up like princesses and stuff, so we'll have a look at that. We've of course got the writing challenge. That is specifically for you folks to expand your horizons and possibly get something into a certain publication that's happening from my side. And we're going to be talking about the amazing thing that you guys are doing, Dave. We're going to have a look at that. Let's actually jump onto that straight away, because I think it's pretty awesome. Then we're going to come to questions. So hold your questions for now. We are going to go very quickly into some random chaos. Have a look at this.
Who doesn't love random chaos?
Who doesn't love random chaos? And it doesn't work because I didn't set it up properly. I'm using my new Restream deck. I'm so excited. Look at this. The whole show is lined up on buttons, but you have to program them properly. So supposedly you don't have a disaster. Give me just a second, Dave, because I want to prove that this does work. I'm coming back to you right now. So I'm on solo. Watch what happens when I do this, when we go for random chaos. It worked. There we go. It worked. So we're in random chaos. I'm going to bring Dave back now. Dave, come back to us. There's Dave. Okay, good. I've got to do some more programming and some tweaking. Let's go through some of the questions. Or not questions. I'm not going through questions yet. It's not questions yet. We're in random chaos. I just want to have a look and see what's going on. Let's see. Where are we? We've got some. The Dungeon Dadster says, oh my God, so much awesome in one place. That he must be talking about you there, Dave. Athena Geary says, hello, David. Matthew Elkins, for Nerds by Nerds, all this kind of cool stuff. We got people from down under, from Australia. Where else? Let's see. Got some questions starting to come through already. We'll get there. Laura Bones, thank you for the subscription on Twitch. I do appreciate that. Alan Robinson asks a very important question, Dave. He says, question, may I ask a question? So I think you should go.
Let's see. Yes.
Yes, there we go. All right. So yes, you can ask questions when you get there. Hold your questions, please, everybody. There's so many questions coming through already. Just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of questions. But we're going to talk just very briefly before we go there. Let's see. New Zealand says hello, New Zealand. Even though it's probably like 3 a.m. for you folks. Thank you for joining us here today. We're going to be talking about something I think very exciting, and I'm going to just cut here very quickly. Dave, you won't be able to see me, but I will come back to you. I promise. We're going to have a look at this thing. What's this thing? Out of the box encounters for 5th edition, made by none other than Nerdarchy! Okay, so Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. If you haven't heard about this, you will be seeing it on my channel coming up a little bit later on in a couple of weeks' time. Just to remind you to come back and have a look at this. Look at this. We are on day 2 of this Kickstarter, and they've doubled what they need already, which means all the stretch goals have been reached. So cool. Out of the encounter, out of the box encounters, I should say. And that's why I thought, let me bring Dave in and he can talk to us about this whole thing, because I think it's very, very exciting. The artwork is so pretty, and It's so cool. It's so cool. And then there are these weird, wonderful little plastic things. I don't know if I like them or if I don't like them. I want to talk a bit more about those. And if you don't, I mean, go and check this out. There's just some amazing stuff in there. And look at these stretch goals. Unlocked, 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 unlocked. Just, it's going to be crazy. They're going to have to add more in, I think. So that's what we're talking about now for the next sort of few minutes. And if you've got some thoughts on this type of thing, if you're excited about it, let us know. If you want to know more, now's the time to ask questions of Dave. He will answer them for us. If you want to become one of those backers, well, just head on over to kickstarter.com/projects/nerdarchy and you will find their stuff there. It's pretty cool indeed. Dave, talk to us. What is this?
I'm so blown away by all the stuff you got going on here. Like, oh my god, the full-blown production of how to be a great game master is fantastic.
Wow, we try. We're getting there. There's going to be a technical screw up somewhere. Just give it a chance.
But yeah, so out of the box encounters, it's fully funded twice over now. We funded in less than 30 hours. Pretty happy for our first Kickstarter. That feels pretty good. We've been working on it for a while. You had mentioned the minis, right? The flat plastic minis, and I don't know if you've used pawns, like the cardboard pawns before.
Yeah.
But they're just like that, except for they have a front and back facing, and they're painted on the clear plastic, which actually in person, it really just makes them pop. Like we had discovered Arknight before we started working with them on this, and it really like takes the pawns to the next level. Is it as good as miniatures? Probably not, but it's so much better than just the cardboard pawns. I couldn't believe just how much of a difference put on the clear plastic made. And you know what? If you don't have a lot of space, or you don't have the funds to go full on with Reaper or any of the other miniatures, it's a great middle ground. The flat plastic or the flat maps are great as well. Because if you're a GM on the go, like this is all stuff you can just basically put under your arm and carry with you and take it with you. Where if you got terrain, like pretty much you need like a trolley or something to get it around, or you're just playing at the DM's house pretty much, or whoever owns that terrain, because it's a lot to move around. Absolutely. And also, if you need to make changes on the fly, it's really easy to do with this stuff. So for the convenience, we really like that.
No, that's super cool. That is super cool. So the monsters that feature in the out-of-the-box encounters are going to be on some of those plastic transparent
Yes,
things.
they are all going to be on it. Every stretch goal we unlock with more encounters, there will be miniatures and terrain to match them, maps to match them.
Oh, fantastic. So some questions that have been coming through very quickly, and I'm fairly certain they are answered elsewhere, but this is a place for people to ask questions. Grizzlus on Twitch says, does it include puzzles out of the box?
Yes. The encounters basically incorporate all the pillars of Dungeons and Dragons: exploration, combat, social. Most of them aren't actually even set to specific levels, so you could use them for everything. And it doesn't matter, like if you're on the way to your next adventure or you're in the marketplace, there's something from out of the box that you can drop right in your game. That's what they were designed for. Our writer Mike Gould has been playing and gaming for 30 years, so he's got a lot of experience. He's seen a lot of the wacky stuff that players do, and he takes the player's perspective into mind when he's building, when he built these encounters.
Right. Lovely. Lots of questions coming in. There was one comment, and I think let's get your way in on this, Dave. And if you want to plead the fifth, you're more than welcome to. I have actually signed a contract with Wizards of the Coast where I'm not allowed to say bad things about them.
Yeah.
Well, while I'm running the show for them on their Twitch channel, but I don't think that one can say bad things, but that's not so much the question. The question that was posed is, I wish people would talk more about other systems other than D&D. This is from Gahiel. Gahiel, I'm not sure how you would pronounce that on YouTube. I wish people would talk about other systems other than D&D, because it doesn't seem to get much praise. Then I saw another comment about Starfinder, wishing that Starfinder was played more often. And I do have to say, since both Dave and I are currently involved in it, Dave, where can we find Starfinder stuff happening?
Well, I believe Wednesday nights on Saber Dice, there's plenty of Starfinder action going. But really, anything we do, can you really call it whatever it is? All the antics we get up to. Loosely, we're playing Starfinder. No, we're playing Starfinder over there. And you know what? To the other question, where you would like to see more stuff that isn't D&D, the huge problem with that is that us as creators aren't rewarded when we do that. We're actually penalized because there isn't the viewership for it. And a lot of times we try, and I know Guy does this specifically much better than Nerdarchy for sure, is keeping the advice more neutral and system agnostic, where we've really kind of doubled down on D&D because what we learned is that's what our audience wants us to talk about. And it's like when we talk about other things, while we may find it fulfilling or rewarding, we just know that we're going to get half as many views, a third as many views, if we do that. So unfortunately, like, it's always like you're catering to what you want to do as a creator, what the platform is going to reward you for, what the viewers are going to reward you for. Anytime you see people kind of like maybe call out a creator or complain about a certain thing, usually the reason why they do it is because they get rewarded when they do that thing. Even though people like to complain about it, but that's because people like to watch and complain about things more than they like to watch and love things.
Right.
Sorry.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. You're completely right. And I think that's something that is definitely there. One of the things that I am doing at Gen Con, for all of you that watch, and for that particular question, I've actually set up meetings now with, I think it's about 4 or 5 different publishing houses, people that do things like White Wolf, Cubicle 7, Pinnacle Entertainment. They produce all of these other systems. I don't want to say alternative systems because that kind of implies like there isn't, D&D is the one system and then everything is an alternative. So I've set up these meetings with these guys because we are hoping on the channel to actually start a weekly series where each month we take one of these systems that doesn't get the huge amount of viewership and unpack it and look at it from a narrative perspective, from a rules perspective, to a degree. I'm not very big on rules, but to look at it from an entry level, going into White Wolf, let's say we want to play Vampire, what do we need to know about that? How do we get into that? What's the system? If we want to look at Cthulhu 7, those kinds of things, Savage Worlds, all those kind of wonderful things. So I've set up meetings at Gen Con specifically to try and address this. So watch this channel. It may be coming because, as you say though, Dave, it is a challenge. You go, well, our livelihoods are based on viewership numbers and advertising, and if it isn't there, it isn't there. So how do we resolve that? So I'm trying to work through that with the publishers to say, hey, what can we do? Because there's lots of great games out there. It's just about getting that kind of exposure.
So we, like when Starfinder first came out, we decided to take a look at it, and we started doing a bunch of videos on it, right? This is a really big book, right? And every time you look in an RPG, a lot of times they're really big books. So when you're talking about the investment of time to actually look at another system and talk about it, compared to like, the reward that you're going to get for doing it, unfortunately, they just don't line up. It's a lot of hours. And like you said, we're talking to publishers, we're going to try and do the thing. And a lot of times these publishers are like, so they're super happy to get like 1,000 views, right? The bigger creator you are, you get 1,000 views on a video. It's like you didn't even do anything.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think this is something that a lot of people don't realize. So, but we have spoken enough. There's lots of questions coming through. So I think we should go into answering some questions. Let's do that. And because I did all of this stuff, I really want to show it off. And I didn't set it up for this because I suddenly went, hey, let's have Dave on the show because we want to talk about this cool thing that he's doing. And we're going to come back to that in a little bit. So I'm going to go back to just me so that you can see this stuff. Now, and I want your feedback because, you guys watch the show. The show's basically for you so we can talk about stuff and we can unpack stuff. So I want you to have a look at that. So we are going to go into That's right. That's right. It's your questions. So there have been lots of questions coming through. These are the rules, folks. You put your giant word question in the very front, and then you can either say question Dave, question Guy, question both, as I see has already been coming through, which is fantastic. If we don't answer your question, repeat it. Repeat it until we do, or the show runs out. If it does run out, you can head on over to our Discord server. That's discord.gg/greatgm. We're partners with Discord now. Yay. So we get our own little handle there. Head on over there. You'll see that there is within our channel, there's a section called Live Sessions Q&A. And you can post your question there. And then we will answer it in a show like the one today. So I'm actually going to go there and I'm going to grab one of those questions there. We're going to have some kind of protocol going on to make sure that people are still actually asking questions there rather than making vast amounts of comments, which is great. We like that, but I'm actually looking for some questions. I don't actually see any questions in the live session Q&A. Well, Mesriel asked, how long does the creative writing usually take? Creative writing usually takes about 15 minutes or so, and we usually do that in the last half hour of the show. So in about an hour from now, give or take. So hang around for that one. I think today's one's going to be quite interesting. There's an interesting little ad in there that could possibly happen. I'm just looking, any more questions in the Q&A? Yeah, we are really going to have to work on that. No, we'll have to get the phrasing right in there, I'm afraid. I'm going to go back to some live stuff now just for a time being. I will come back to this and I will try and find some questions. But we got some questions here. River Mori asks, question for both. How do you guys feel about homebrews that are balanced and helping your players make a balanced homebrew character? How do you feel about homebrewed characters, Dave?
Is the question... making character classes is a question, making races. I mean, I'm all for working with my player to help them come up with whatever it is they're trying to do. As long as I feel like it's motivated by creativity and story and not munchkinism.
There you go, not munchkinism. Munchkinism. We hate munchkinism, don't we? Yes, homebrew. I think there's a place for homebrew. I have to say that because sitting right next to me here, this is the homebrew rules that I'm busy writing for Nautical Adventures for 5th edition, and it's currently covered in my editors. Look at this. Look at what they write. They just cover the page in red writing. It's like maths does not work. What do you think apostrophes were invented for? All these kinds of silly little questions that I don't have time for. What apostrophes? Who needs apostrophes? Anyway, so homebrew rules are particularly close to my heart, I should say. But again, as you say, it must not be for power gaming. It must have some kind of value.
You showing that manuscript makes me flash back to being in school. All that red.
And let me tell you,
so cruel.
It is. It's like, why would you write this? This doesn't make sense type of thing. Adjust. Does the save negate the effect? I mean, those kind of questions. It's like, I don't know if the save negates the effect. You choose. Anyway, Trobarton69 says, what other settings, systems do you guys both or do enjoy playing, both as players and as GMs? It's a good question, Trobarton69. What settings do you like playing in?
So settings or systems? I mean, kind of both. Yeah, Cypher system's fun. I love Mutants and Masterminds 3rd edition in particular. I love what they did over there. Big fan of Steve Kenson. I know you don't like this one, but I like the new Star Wars game. Yeah, despite the fancy dice and the custom dice. So I've had a lot of fun with that. We've gone back and played Marvel Phase Rip from like the 80s, which was we had a blast playing that. I was actually asked this question earlier, and I feel like I gravitate more towards like groups than I do systems and settings. Right. So like I'll play almost anything if it's like a group that I want to play with. Like the Saber Dice crowd, I'd play anything with those folks. And there's been other games where someone's like, it was a group of people, and they're like, let's play Palladium. I'm like, oh, Palladium, but I like that group, so I know we'll still have fun.
Absolutely. I think that's a brilliant answer to say. It depends entirely on the group. The system is oftentimes irrelevant unless it kind of gets in the way. And I'm on record for saying this. I mean, Starfinder, the ship combat, I think is not well done, but that's my personal opinion. I still love playing on the Excuse me, on the Oasis game. So, and there's another question on that, actually. Good Old Gamer says, how did you come up with your character concept for Oasis? That was directed to me, but I think we can both answer that one. Where did Snikt come from? Oasis is the Starfinder game. Dave plays this Yusoki, it's the rat folk.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know if people are familiar with Teen Titans. The old animated cartoon, not Teen Titans Go, but the one that came out before that. So I was a little inspired by the character, the villain Gizmo, and I really wanted just to play this Yusaki, almost like a Johnny Rotten type character, like a punk rocker. And I was really torn between almost taking the theme that is like like celebrity or something like that. I almost took that for sure.
Nice. Well, there we go. No, the Doctor. I always like to create characters that use backgrounds specifically. And if you watch this Sunday, there's a player video coming out where we revisit the 6 questions that you should ask your character when you make them. Yeah, I thought, well, let's look at a human, let's look at a doctor. Cody, I think, gave us instruction, create this crack team of individuals.
We followed that to a T.
Oh, yeah. Crack team of complete incompetence. So, yes, that definitely happened. And I think, so with him, I was like, well, what happens if you're a doctor and the doctor kind of heals stuff and does that kind of stuff? But what else can you do with it? What else can you do with it? And so I wanted a character journey where this character was wanting something more than just to exist, and so he wants to have a real body, which I think is quite sad. And if you've watched the latest episode, you'll see how that's working out for him. In terms of being really depressing, Cody really turned the wrench on that one. I rather enjoyed it, but I won't spoil it if you haven't yet watched that. So there we go. Lots of questions. So many questions coming through, guys. I really do appreciate it. We've got 3 more minutes before we're going to talk about some YouTube videos and how you can win some experience points. Honourable 596 says... the chat's gone already. Let's get back to that. Honourable 596 says, question, Dave, how could you play a space rat without trying to play a space skaven?
That's a good question, but I don't feel like Snick would lead from the back, like any good Skaven would. But Skavens are actually one of my favorite Warhammer races, and I love the Rat Ogres.
Oh, right, yes, those giant rat ogres. Yeah. I like the Skaven. I just never played them as an army, I must admit. I never played
Warhammer at all. Like all those minis and painting I find very daunting.
Yeah, I like the painting. I couldn't play because I don't do the numbers thing very well, so my armies would just die all the time. It's very tragic. Xavier Faust asks, if you could see wizards focus on a given realm within the D&D world other than Forgotten Realms, so Eberron or Greyhawk, which would you like to see receive a bit more love? So wizards in this case, Wizards of the Coast. I'm going to throw that over to you, Dave, because to be perfectly honest with you, I haven't got a clue what the difference is between Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk. Eberron is like a big desert factory type thing, isn't it? I don't play other people's settings. I play Braxia. I play my own settings. So, Dave,
all right,
help me out
this
here.
is easy. This is easy. Anything but Greyhawk and Forgotten Realms. I mean, Forgotten Realms is Greyhawk as Ed Greenwood's homebrew campaign setting is amazing. But really, like, it's all like derivative of Tolkien and real generic fantasy. So if I'm going to do generic fantasy, I might as well just do my own. So for that reason, Dark Sun, Spelljammer, Planescape, Eberron, all of them have much different feels and flavors as far as I'm concerned. And but when someone's like, "Oh, I wish they would do Dragonlance," or "I wish they would do Greyhawk," I'm like, "Why?" Like, you literally need nothing to play those worlds. Like, all the lore stuff is there, and everything else is pretty much generic fantasy. So you would need to make such little tweaks that I don't understand what people feel like they need.
Sort of, yeah. I have heard rumors that someone, this is probably just someone being optimistic, but that Spelljammer might be the next big thing.
I heard somewhere they're working on the Eberron book.
Oh, Eberron, I suppose. There we go. There we go. Okay, we are on the half hour, so halt your questions, if you please. Take your questions and put them in your pocket. Keep them until we need them again. We do not need them just now. We will come back to questions shortly. Shortly, we will come back to questions. There are so many questions coming through here, Dave. It's just insane. Oh, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. I really wish we could get there. I really wish we could get through all of them. But we do have to do some other stuff. We want to show some love to some other YouTubers that are out there. I should have planned this better, actually. I'm not talking about your videos this week, Dave. Usually I do What Did Nerdarchy talk about, but this week I had others. So there we go.
All right. There are plenty of great content creators out there on YouTube.
There absolutely are. Okay, so if this is your first time to YouTube creating content, I'm going to show off another video. Watch this. Complete lack of creativity here. So we're going to go and look at some YouTube videos shortly. So have a look at this. I know, it's crazy. It's this. I thought I would just divide the show up with different chapter headings and stuff. What do you think about that? Let me know. Let's go back to Dave here while we talk about YouTube videos. So if you are new to YouTube videos sessions, what happens is you can earn yourself some experience points. That's right. So I will talk about, and Dave will perhaps share with us as well, some YouTube channels that are worth checking out. Have a look at. Generally, the rule is it's got to have a video that came out this week sometime, so we can go and have a look at that. Keep on the finger on the pulse type of thing. If you are the first to post up the link, the accurate link, in the chat, so whether that's on Twitch or on YouTube, you will score yourself. Dave, how many experience points do you think people should get for being able to find the link? We usually average somewhere between 50 and 200.
Well, I was going to go with 100, though.
100, there we go. 100 experience points is yours to take home and do with as you choose. You can hand them into your local GM and say, look, I earned 100 experience points watching How to Be a Great GM live, and they're absolutely valid. And let the GM come and fight with me if they don't want to reward it to you.
They're going to be like, that's fine, we use milestones.
Exactly. So we're going to go to some channels now. There's some channels that are really, really, really cool. Have a look out. I am sitting on the YouTube site so that I can authorize links that you send through. First up, we're talking, well, this channel features all the time because I don't know, I think it's his voice. Runesmith Basically Lich. It's a great video that unpacks liches and talks about liches and does all the stuff that Runesmith does so well. Have you watched Runesmith stuff, Dave?
I have watched some of Runesmith stuff, and sometimes he puts out really, really weird things like bears,
right?
Or something like completely random.
Absolutely. So, Stranger jumped in there. Got a link in from Stranger on YouTube straight away. Restream is taking forever to come back to me. I haven't seen anything on Twitch yet. So, Stranger, you've definitely got your 100 experience points. Yeah, so he talks about basic liches, what lich is all about, and that kind of thing. Of course, I've got a lich who features in Ghosts of Saltmarsh, so don't quote him at me when you find out about my lich, because I break rules. So, that's Runesmith, Basically Lich. Have a look at that. WebDM this week released a thing called Rules as Written or Rules as Intended. What do you think about rules as intended versus rules as written?
You know, at my table, it's rules as I want them. Where does that fall into that? I guess there's a lot of gray area, but we do a lot of advocating, and the DM just does what they're going to do at our table, and we don't worry about it.
There you go. I usually do rules as discussed after the game, so it's like, well, this is what I think the rules should be now, and let's play it as is, and then we'll change it later. I never retcon anything. I don't go back and say, oh well, I have to change that. But yes, so WebDM rules as written. I do think they're going to be at Gen Con. I'd like to meet them at Gen Con actually. But I don't know. I haven't reached out to them just yet. So there we go. Another one to have a look at. And this is the one that I want you to have a look at this one. We haven't got a. Have we got a link up yet for them? No. No one's posting up a link for WebDM. Oh dear. John, Ryan, Philip. Good night. Sleep tight. They're saying good night in the chat. So thanks for being part of the show. Lots of people talk about rules are more like guidelines. Rules as written, which is raw. Absolutely, they do make some jokes about that. Okay, the next video to look at, Puffin Forest. Have a look at Puffin Forest. Puffin Forest did a thing called Dungeons and Dragons Story. The DM.exe has crashed. And this is basically, I mean, Puffin Forest is always entertaining to watch. We played with Puffin Forest, didn't we? We played Wrath of Glory.
We did. And also, we were like one of the first people to get him, to unmask him on our channel. Both in, we had him on one of our live chats, and also Ingest Quest was probably the first RPG cooking show to hit the web.
Is that right? Oh, man. Well, he does his usual glorious animated magic where he talks about this experience that he had as a GM with some players and a new campaign that he started running. The challenging thing that he talks about in the whole video, the whole MacGuffin behind it, and I won't spoil it for you because I want you to go and have a look at it, is I think a GM making a very big mistake insofar as he didn't vet his player characters before they started playing. And that, to me, is a little bit dangerous. He kind of had the players make new characters and they sat down and started playing, which resulted in him discovering some very interesting character builds, causing all kinds of consternation for him. So there is...
In his defense, I must say I've been there, done that.
Oh, yeah. I think everyone has. I think absolutely everyone has. So yes, it's not a new mistake. It is definitely one that's been there before. Scarlegrim, you know Scarlegrim. I'm a fan of Scarlegrim. I think Twitch has got the links going up, but YouTube hasn't. I don't know if that's because people have given up and they've gone, 100 experience points, not worth it, or they're waiting for the milestone where everybody levels up. But Twitch is active sharing those links, without a doubt. So there's some excitement happening on Twitch there at the very least. Scarlegrim released, now this is an interesting title, The Kailash Mutiny. Most lively cookery I've handled. It's quite a long title, and he really could have dropped the first half and just said the most lively cookery I've ever handled. The cookery, of course, there we go, Mark Anthony Smith on YouTube. Thank you for sharing that one link. The cookery, of course, is a curved blade. It's listed in most rule books as a dagger. But when you see the size of this thing, it's more like a short sword, if you ask me. I don't think it should be doing
like a machete, you know, that someone bent.
Right? It's like, oh, it's a dagger. You kind of think of this little blade. No, it's this massive blade used for cutting cane and doing all sorts of wonderful things. And used primarily during the Indian Mutiny when the British were trying to control India back in the 1850s. So very interesting weapon there. And then finally, the last video for us to have a look at before we go back to some more discussions with Dave.
I see an interesting comment in there.
Oh, yeah?
I can run an entire role-playing session with no paper, pencils, music, computers, dice, minis, maps, or anything. I think at that point you're just telling a story.
Yes, if you're not using any of the above. I actually, you know, there is a role-playing system that someone was mentioning, which is a diceless system. I've completely forgotten the name of it now.
I think I know the system you're talking about, but I don't remember the name either.
Right? Yes, and I see that.
I think that was my response then too. I'm like, you guys are just telling a story together then.
It's just collective storytelling, absolutely. And I do see that YouTube is blocking links for some reason. I'm sitting here on the YouTube dashboard trying to authorize. Some links are getting through, some links are not getting through. So I'm not sure what's happening with that. So I'm going to make a GM's decision here, and I'm going to award every single one of you with 100 experience points. So you've got 100 experience points to take in bank and use as you so choose. The last video from me is Todd's Workshop, TODS, Todd's Workshop, new channel that I've found, and he has got a video. It's not a week, it's not within the last week, it's within the last month, but he has a video called 6 Medieval Arrow Types. Now, I don't know. I get excited about medieval weaponry, especially real medieval weaponry. Dave, what are your thoughts on real weaponry? I mean, are you a fan of real stuff or? No,
I actually don't like real anything in my games. I definitely am more. Gritty realism is like the opposite of the spectrum from where I am with my gaming these days. Nah, it's fine. Whatever people like. I do like that stuff. Maybe from just like a historical learning and facts like that. But as far as realism and RPGs, no place for it.
There we go. Absolutely. I thoroughly agree with you. Do not ever hit your players with a real longsword. It never ends well. Absolutely. Todd's Workshop, he looks at 6 different shapes of arrows that were used during the medieval period, those designed to get through armor and stuff, and he does ask some very, very interesting questions around certain types of arrow types and things. So have a look at what he talks about. I think it's pretty cool. As far as I'm concerned, oh wow, I see Game Master's Vault has jumped in there. He's sitting behind me, behind the green screen, so I can't actually throw anything at him because he's protected at the moment. But I'm actually staying with him here in the Twin Cities. He's awarded 150 experience points to everybody on Twitch, which I'm actually okay with that. You know what? I'm actually okay with that. So there we go. Dave, have you got any YouTube channels that you watch? Anything in particular?
So I would say I watch more like how-to YouTube than anything nowadays. I do like XP to level 3. I like Jacob stuff only because it's just like pure entertainment. Like,
It is.
Like I don't go there to learn anything. I just go there to watch Jacob be goofy and funny, and I love the stuff that he does over there. I kind of like spot drop in on different channels. Occasionally, like Shadversity will put up something, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, and I'll check that out. Or I just want like YouTube junk food, like death battles.
Death battles. That's the robot death battles.
No. You're thinking of Cody. No, so death battles is they take like 2 characters and they weigh them out statistically, and then they do like an 8-bit animation of them and have them fight.
There we go. Okay, yeah, because we were talking about robot battles and stuff. I was like, maybe that's death battles. There we go. Right. Okay, so YouTube videos for you to watch. If you have any that you think I should have a look at, or we should have a look at, let me know.
Oh, one more.
Yeah, one more. Yes.
We talked about before we started, so I'll bring it up. It's Dice Damsels and Everything Nice. It's like a D&D show, but they all dress up like Disney princesses, and they're not really playing D&D. It is literally a show, but it's like 10 minutes long. It's entertaining. I think it's kind of cool and fun.
Well, there you go. Give me that title again.
It's Damsels, Dice, and Everything Nice.
Damsels, Dice, and Everything Nice. Well, there we go. Have a look at that. It sounds crazy. It sounds absolutely, absolutely awesome. Okay, if you have just joined us, we are well into the show, 42 minutes into the show already, and we are talking with Dave from Nerdarchy, and Dave is here for a whole bunch of reasons. One, I just enjoy hanging out with him and chatting, and 2, Dave is currently involved in an amazing Kickstarter. I'm going to go back to that page just to refresh if we've got new people. I think we do have a whole bunch of new people, so I'm just going to go back there very quickly just to remind people what we're talking about so they can have a look and see. This is the new Kickstarter that Nerdarchy has launched. You can find it obviously on Kickstarter. There it is there. It's out of the box encounters for 5th edition. It is maps, it is puzzles, it is standout minis. It's just everything that you need for a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, Matt Mercer's there saying how cool it is, and of course he's absolutely right. The contents is amazing. Wonderful artwork as well as suggested levels. I mean, it really is awesome. Some pretty spectacular map work as well. I think it's all there. It really is all there, just waiting for you. These transparent minis that we were talking about a little bit earlier on, and of course just an amazing amount of opportunities for you to get involved in that, and then a whole bunch of stretch goals funded. So lots to look at from that Kickstarter. Go and join it if you haven't already. Kickstarter.com. You've got 29 days, but they've already blasted past what they were looking for, so that's awesome. That means we're going to get all of the extra stuff that they had planned on and are now panicking and desperately trying to make sure actually happens, I'm sure. So Dave, tell us, what was the inspiration behind Out of the Box Encounters? Where did that come from?
So we got to a point where we wanted to do something on Kickstarter, and we were trying to figure out what to do. But at the same time, this gentleman, Mike Gould, had been volunteering and writing for us for a while, and he was doing these weekly articles called Out of the Box Encounters, and they were just really, really good. So we were like, you know what? That is pretty much done. It needs some art, it needs maps, and maybe we can find some extra bells and whistles. It was never really designed to be a product, so it needed a bit of polishing. There were things that aren't SRD, so we had to make up new monsters, create new match items, and things like that. So there's going to be some new stuff in there as well. But we just felt like it was such a strong concept that GMs old and new alike would really benefit from drawing on Mike's experience, gaming for 30 years and being a GM for most of that time. So it just made sense to us.
Right. No, absolutely. There's a question here from Teachers468. How much research did you do while making the out-of-the-box encounters? How long did it take you to do as well? I mean, let's ask those two questions.
Well, so like we said, it went out over the course of a year on the website, and it's stuff that Mike would use in his own games. Sometimes we're doing live chats and Mike will pop in and someone would ask a question, and next thing you know, he's making an encounter based around that. So like one of my favorites is Aces High, and it's a bunch of basically goblin bandits that have trained dire bats, giant bats that they ride on, and they drop grenades on their victims, on their prey. And there's a cool mechanic in there for the grenades. They go off on their own initiative, which is a little bit random because they're goblins. Why not? Some of the encounters, one of them is you're shopping and there's a store with familiars in it.
Lovely. And you can just drop these in almost any setting. They're just sort of setting it up.
Yeah, they're setting agnostic, and a bunch of different terrains, different scenarios. Some of them are social encounters, some of them are exploration, some of them are combat. It's a good mix.
Lovely. There we go. Okay, back to your questions. So the questions have been coming in long, thick, and just vast numbers of them, which is absolutely lovely. I'm going to go here. Is Daduta asks, this is for both, thoughts on desert settings in RPGs, as in the actual desert, not a city in the desert, so actual desert settings. Have you ever run desert settings?
Oh, I mean, over the course of gaming, I don't think there's any place we haven't run, to be honest with you. But as far as like we have a video up on our channel called Oasis. We would do a series called Terrible Terrain. So that's definitely one that we've covered in the past. What specifically, do you want to know about running in deserts? You're going to have heat exhaustion and dealing with dehydration. We've done Dark Sun games, which essentially that's a desert planet.
That's what I was thinking of, getting it confused with Eberron.
Yeah, and in second edition, they started the character tree, and you had to start your character at third level because they didn't think, because the world was so harsh, and they recommended you having 3 to 5 characters, so this way when your character dies, you have another one to play.
There we go. Now I see here that there's a statement. This is I don't know if this is called backseat stream driving or something. Game Master's Vault, who is quite literally sitting behind my green screen here. Game Master's Vault asked the question. This is for Dave. Dave, could you do me a favour and tell Guy what an apostrophe is? I don't think he knows. Now, for those of you who don't know, Game Master's Vault is editing my book that's going to be coming out hopefully in the next 2 months or so, or next month. We're pushing artists and things to get all this stuff done. He apparently, I don't know how to use an apostrophe. I always thought they were like Christmas decorations. You just kind of throw them at the tree, or in this case, the page, and you see where they land.
Is it because you don't use them, or you use them too much? See, I use them too much. I'm like the Shatner of writing.
Shatner of writing. He says, word, comma, hyphen.
You need those dramatic pauses in there.
There we go. I like that one. Tide Runner Dax says, question for Dave, is there a way that I can incentivize my players? And the question's gone. Where was it? I had it.
I think I know what the question was. I think I saw it go by.
Okay. This is for spending the session on their phones doing unrelated things. Player is 14 and 13 with ADHD. She asked me to run a game for them.
Teenagers with ADHD, I don't think you're going to do anything about that. Tell them to use D&D Beyond so they get their character sheets on there. At least it'll pertain to the game.
Right, you can get D&D Beyond. Absolutely, absolutely. That's definitely an option. I know some GMs have a box into which cell phones are placed at the beginning of the session, and then you come out at the end of the session or during breaks. So that is something that you could also have a look at. But
instead of getting inspiration, they get 30 seconds on their phone.
there we go. Instead of getting inspiration or experience points, you get 30 seconds. Do you want to level up or do you want to check your phone? I bet I know where they would go. Edward Horseman says, hello to you both from the Netherlands. Goedenavond, I suppose. How would you create a challenging encounter for your PCs in a system with no challenge ratings or magic powers? A challenging encounter with no magic powers. I think that's the more interesting one there, Dave. What would you do in a system with no magic powers? So,
so ultimately the key is always creating tension and drama, right? Now it doesn't really matter the genre, it doesn't matter the system. So what kind of stories are you trying to tell? Because that's gonna flavor where your tension points are, where the drama is going to happen in your game. Like if you're running a spy game in the modern or future, it's going to be much different than if you're running a horror type game with a lot of supernatural elements to it. So it's about figuring out where those tension points are. Without magical effects, you don't really need them. Like you could you're in a house, it's dark, you hear a noise in the other room, no one else is supposed to be in the house. Or you remember the movie where the phone keeps ringing, and then the call. Where's the call from? It's inside the house. That's not a magical effect, but it creates drama and it's freaky and it's scary. And you can do the same thing. It just depends on what kind of story you're trying to tell. So without specifics, it's harder to give like specific examples.
I agree. And I know I keep saying this, but in the video that actually has the Kickstarter announcement for the Nerdarchy out-of-the-box encounters, which will be on my channel or in a couple of weeks' time. So watch out for this, because it specifically answers what I think is the ultimate secret for every GM, which is not really very secret because it's been out there for a long time, but a lot of people kind of forget that. And that specifically addresses how do you create tension and how do you create a better encounter. There's 3 elements to it. I'm just going to leave you with the idea that it's the 3 Ps. If you get your 3 Ps right, then you're okay in terms of those things. And I'm going to be mean. I'm not going to tell you what they are. I'm going to have to make you watch that video. So there you go. Love me, hate me. Wow. Juan Pablo Munoz says, question, running my first game, I'm having trouble getting feedback from my players. I've asked them for feedback, but it feels like they're holding back. Any suggestions? Should I record my session? Dave?
Well, recording your sessions is actually a really good way to kind of produce your own feedback, but that doesn't really give you insight into what your players are thinking about and what they want. And I don't know why they wouldn't tell you. Unless they don't like something and they're afraid of hurting your feelings. That could be something. But, even if that's the case, there's a benefit to getting that information so that maybe you can improve or you can find like a happy medium to, so that everyone enjoys the game more. When we used to play every Saturday, like clockwork. It was like, if you didn't come to game, like you're ostracized in our social group. And so much so, like one guy used to have his like girlfriend call him out, and which only made it worse for him, by the way, because we were terrible back then. But no, like every Monday after the game, like I would talk to different players and just ask them about the game and questions and just try and engage them in conversation. And I feel like maybe if you do it one-on-one, you might get better results if you haven't tried that.
Yes, one-on-one texting sometimes works. It takes away the kind of the personal feeling. Again, if people are reluctant to give you feedback, that can certainly work. Flip it on its head. Would you be willing to give your players feedback in terms of how they played the game? what would you say to them in terms of their playing style and their character builds and things like that. If you're comfortable talking to them, sometimes it can be a great opener, is to say, hey, listen, I noticed in the game you played your character like this. I thought that was cool. I did think that maybe if this is what you're going for, you may want to work on this. So start by opening a conversation by giving them advice or your feedback on their playing style, and then say, well, do you have anything from my side? Because that often, once you've opened that door, then people are happy to walk through it. So I see that Teachers468 says the apostrophe is for possession most of the time. So if Guy has a game, then it is Guy apostrophe's game. I thought it was for possession, but not that kind of possession. Mine requires an old priest and a young priest. So yeah, apparently, I mean, there's no.
Oh, I described the comma. That's the best.
Yeah. It's just use it. So there's lots of questions. There's lots of questions coming through, and there's some questions that I see have been repeated a couple of times. So I'm going to try and I don't want to break my own rules here, but I feel sorry for people who've kind of asked the same question. I see it skipping past whilst we're answering previous ones. So let's see here. I'm going to go and find one that I've seen that's coming through quite often. How do you keep the attention of your younger players and engage their creativity when and if you run for them? Do you run games for younger people? This comes from the Dungeon Dadster.
I have. I mean, they're a little. I guess it depends what you consider younger. You know, like Ted is run for really young, and I've run for like teens and tweens. You know, I think for kids you need shorter games because of their extension span and possibly even breaks, and like you just kind of have to gauge your players and see if you see their attention waning. You either have to do something to pull them back into the game, or you have to have the wherewithal to go, maybe we should end here, or maybe we should take a 15-minute break and send them out to run around or something, depending on how young the children are that you're playing with.
Right, absolutely. I think the youngest I have ever run games for, and by running games, not just sort of 10 minutes demonstration at a convention or something like that, because I have done that for kids that are like 11 or 12. I think the youngest game that I've run for would be my peers when I was running games when I was 14 and they were 14, and I don't think anyone was really focused too much on that kind of stuff with all the hormones and things floating around there. But yeah, the youngest I think is probably about 19 or 20, and even then, it's a case of, as you say, you've got to read them like you do with all channels and with all people, I should say, and kind of go, okay, well, yes, let's bring them back. Let's make it exciting. Let's take a break. Let's do something along those lines. We're gonna stay where we are for now. We still got lots of questions coming through, so we're gonna stay here for a little bit. On the hour, we're gonna look at and talk about something that you have been asking for. You have been asking for it for a long time. So wait for that. You know who I would actually suggest you speak to, the Dungeon Dadster, is go and look for a web channel, a YouTube channel called Dead Aussie Gamer. That's Michael Kesevan. He runs games at a youth centre. That's his day job. He's been hired by the Australian government to go and actually run a youth centre program for the youth after school, and he runs a lot of kids games, and I've seen some behind the scenes of him playing with kids. It's absolutely mind-blowing what he does. I don't know where he gets the energy from personally. DJ Down Under 757, DJ Down Under, speaking of Australia, question, Guy Senpai, planning on running. Thank you for that, Edward Horseman. The €5 is greatly appreciated. You are our new monster that must be defeated. If you guys have a look down there, there's the new monster to beat. That's Edward. Thank you for that. DJ Down Under 757 says, planning on running a CG mentor. So, yeah, a chaotic good. Okay, let me unpack the acronyms here. Planning on running a chaotic good mentor NPC, more of a benefactor quest giver. Okay, then they might not be a mentor. That essentially has the power of a warlock patron. Goes to the machine type of stuff. Any tips? I'm not entirely sure. What are your thoughts in terms of a warlock patroned benefactor quest giver as an NPC? Dave, do you see any problems with that?
I think it works just like any other NPC. Really, just remember, if you stat it, they will kill it. But no, yeah, like I like using odd and random kind of NPCs in my games that are not typical. of the typical races and classes. So I'm all for it.
Right, absolutely. I think also the Warlock, provided that the patron isn't sort of diametrically opposed to the party, there shouldn't be a problem, unless you want that to be the case. So if you're setting up this mentor NPC, this quest giver, they're sending the party off on quests and things, and the quests are really, really, really good, and the party's flourishing, and then the party discovers that the Warlock patron is actually some kind of giant evil that the players' characters have been fighting against in other quests on other sidelines. That could create an interesting moral dilemma in terms of, well, he's been good, but the patron that just gives him power is evil. We're trying to defeat that. So what do we do? It could be an ethical or a moral dilemma that you could throw in there. Not entirely sure what route you want to take. White Tiger.
Warlocks are really weird in 5e.
They are. I kind of like them. I kind of don't like them. I need to play a Warlock, I think. I haven't played a Warlock. I've only played with Warlocks. Have you played a Warlock?
I have dabbled with them. My issue with the Warlock is it's a class that deserves a lot of baggage. But a lot of players just want the cool stuff and they don't want the baggage.
Right, they're kind of like Jedi. It's like, I want all the cool Jedi powers, but I don't want the Empire trying to kill me all the time. Yeah. White Tiger 225 asks this question. What would you... Oh, wait, hang on. Wait, where am I? Where the hell am I? The questions keep coming through. Honourable 596 says, what do you both think of having all dwarves be clones in the same vein as the clone army from Star Wars, everyone physically identical but customizing their armour and personality?
Anytime you can take something in your generic fantasy world and make it different than every other, I think that's a cool idea. The idea that maybe your dwarves are all like golems from the Jewish mythology, right? As opposed to the stereotypical dwarf would be really cool. It's different. They all look the same because they were all fashioned the same way, but through their life experience or whatever, that can make them different. Yeah, I'm all for it.
There you go. Just I must admit, when they started to muck around with Boba Fett's origin story by having his father being... I didn't like that. I really admit I did not like that. It didn't work. It didn't sit well with me. I didn't see why we needed it in those original films. But I mean, all of those first three films that he made in the 90s or 2000s just hurt me anyway. Okay, hold your questions. One more thing to have a look at before we continue with these wonderful questions that are coming through. I think there's some very cool stuff. I saw there was a question about what happens with technical engineers when they get involved in playing Dungeons and Dragons and all kinds of things. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun to answer. But before we go there, you have asked and we have provided. Now, bearing in mind this has nothing very much to do with anything if you don't watch Ghosts of Saltmarsh. The Ghosts of Saltmarsh is the live game that I run on twitch.tv/D&D at it's normally at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Tomorrow it's earlier. It is earlier tomorrow. We had to accommodate a little time shift because of the San Diego Comic-Con, so it is earlier. My brain is wanting to say 12:30 Pacific time, so it's somewhere around there. Check out all of the Twitter posts for that, or you can go and look on the Facebook page. We'll tell you the exact times they've gone brain dead. Nonetheless, in that game, in that show, there has been a specific NPC. Well, he's not even an NPC, he's a familiar. And the familiar, I think, is probably the most favoured character in the entire series. I'm probably projecting here. Nonetheless, the familiar is an individual by the name of Pinky. Pinky the Octopus. It is the familiar of our ship's mage. And Pinky has died in almost every single episode. He's been exploded, he's been eaten, he's been stepped on, he's been eaten by spiders, he's been thrown into the ocean, which normally, shouldn't be a problem for an octopus. But anyway, so there was a big request as to whether we could make some t-shirts. Now, I haven't finished making all the t-shirts because it does take quite some time. But we asked WotC if we could do it because, of course, it's all under their banner. And they said yes. So I'm going to take you to a website very quickly where you can find your very own Pinky t-shirt. Head on over to teespring.com stores, and look for How to Be a Great GM. You'll see all of the regular How to Be a Great GM merchandise. And then we have our very own Pinky stickers. What the flick? You asked for it, you got it. You've got t-shirts, tote bags, stickers, all kinds of wonderful things. The artwork done by a very good friend of the channel, Ghostfire. You'll find all kinds of really cool and wonderful things. So there's What the Flick is available for you, as well as Stop Pinky Abuse. We don't want to abuse Pinky anymore. So we want to stop Pinky abuse, and you can get mugs and t-shirts and all kinds of wonderful things in all sorts of different colors. Like I said, the artwork was just phenomenal. And then if you want to start supporting the characters, we've got Lahuna's t-shirt there with a little quote from her. Of course, it's lam, 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 because that's what Luna does. I'm busy working on the rest of the characters, so if you want to grab a t-shirt or a sticker, a die-cut sticker, you can go and grab those all on teespring.com. You asked, you have now got. I just can't. I love the little expression on this poor little octopi being thrown all the way across. And of course this one where he's flipping the bird as he was thrown off of that ship in the very first episode. I thought that was absolutely delightful. So there we go.
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
You need a shirt with multiple panels, each with a different death of Pinky.
There we go. Multiple panels with Pinky. I've actually made a note of that. Panels, Pinky, death. Yes. There we go. I like that. I like that. So let us know your thoughts on those t-shirts. If you like them, go and pick them up. If you want different types, well, just ask. Your words are to our ears and hopefully enacted on your behalf. Right, Pinky is awfully cute. Yes, Ghostfire, you will see, have done some other cool stuff. Let me bring them up very quickly because they just arrived in the post. This is going to be available at Gen Con. You can get them on our website. Now the bag won't open. Oh my goodness. You can go and grab these little things. It's really small. They're little pins, great GM pins. The camera won't autofocus, but they're really cool, and there's 4 of them in the set. So we've got those coming out, also done by Ghostfire. Just wonderful illustrations. Go and look on our website, www.greatgamemaster.com. You will find them there. Okay.
Hey, wait a minute. Ghostfire, are they from Australia?
Ghostfire, no, they're from your side of the world, as a matter of fact. Ghostfire... let me just make absolutely sure. Ghostfire.net, I think that's their website. Just, interrupt the stream quickly, Ghostfire. But I do want to promote them because they do wonderful work. Ghostfire.net. No, she is married to a wonderful bloke. He and I play online a lot. Julia Lichty, I should say. Ghostfire.net. You can go and have a look at all of the pins and things she makes. They go to conventions all over the place.
You know what? There's a Ghostfire Gaming as well.
There we go. There's the confusion. Yes, so ghostfire.net if you want to buy pins and stuff. You can go and have a look at her catalogue. If you want to buy those great GM pins, head on over to our website where you can find them as well. All right, back to questions. Alan Robinson asks, do you offer t-shirts that make me look like a shirtless orc or troll? Alan, I can absolutely say that you don't need a t-shirt for that, my friend. That's just me being absolutely horrid and facetious. Right, now, where are we? We have got some more questions. Creative writing is in 20 minutes if you are sticking around for that, so have a look at that. So let's get your questions coming through again. Napoleon Bonaparte says, question, I have built a monk for a new campaign and he feels too generic, but I don't know how to make him more deep. Any tips to help my DM with more hooks? Dave, what are your thoughts about that?
I'm just thinking, the way you said more deep, I heard more deep, and I just keep thinking of Dune now. Really, you just have to figure out where he's from and what makes him tick. Why did they become a monk? Why did they leave the monastery? And you know what? I think sometimes there's a misconception that you need all this information to start the game, and sometimes I actually find it to be a hindrance, because while it's okay to build it that way and do it, I find that I will just come up with a couple concepts and then I start building as we play. The Snick is a great example of that. He went from having nothing to do with gambling to having this huge gambling habit now. just because of something that was introduced in the game. And I said, you know what, that's kind of fun. Let's roll with that. What kind of crazy antics will he get up to if he gives into this vice? What is his weakness? Will he spend the entire party's line of credit on gambling and going into debt and having a penthouse suite? Who knows what he would do if presented with that option? So I wouldn't worry about it if you're just starting and you don't feel like you have enough for that character, because maybe something the other players will do will give you something to bite onto and will fill in those gaps that you feel like you're missing.
There you go. There you go. Let the character evolve over time and be open to exploration. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's definitely one of the approaches to take. Of course, I like to ask 6 fundamental questions about the character, and usually that kind of allows things to expand and evolve as well. So, yeah, I think monks also, one looks at them and tends to pigeonhole them. What about the origin of your monk in terms of their race? If they're human, well, what if they are a monk from, say, Africa? How would a monk from say, the Zulu warrior tribes behave, as opposed to a monk from the Himalayas, as opposed to a monk from France? Very different sort of immediate visuals that come to mind. So maybe try applying that as a shorthand thing. Otherwise, watch this Sunday Great Player. We're talking about 6 questions to ask when creating characters. Honourable 596 says, the idea about Viking settlers I had many weeks ago has evolved. Now it's a bunch of Vikings that are mind-controlled into settling a ring of islands beyond the western end of the maps, acting as a prison for bootleg Cthulhu, and the players are expected to put it back to sleep. What do you think of that idea? Vikings that are mind-controlled, that are living on an island trying to raise this Cthulhu character, and the PCs have to put it back to sleep.
Anytime you introduce a great old one, I'm sold. I hope you can appropriately insert the amount of horror that a Cthulhian Lovecraftian storyline deserves. It's very difficult in Dungeons and Dragons, because in Dungeons and Dragons we kill the monsters. We're not afraid of them.
Absolutely. That raises a very good question. Without any shadow of a doubt, in terms of we don't run away from them. I think also when you look at Vikings, you go, well, mind-controlled Vikings, does that make them more terrifying? I'm not sure. I think Vikings unshackled of their minds or just free to run around and destroy stuff. I think that's a pretty terrifying space already. So I'm not sure if the mind control adds anything. If it is Cthulhu, of course, that's mind controlling them, and they have to kill all the Vikings to let Cthulhu go back to sleep. That certainly could be a bit of a hook and quite an interesting one to try and portray. You do need to make sure that the players understand the links in terms of how do they put the old one back to sleep, and what does that link with the Vikings. So something to bear in mind there.
Some interesting foreshadowing there is, like, if these particular Vikings are always described as being bloodthirsty and savage and just pure rage, and when they fight and then the players encounter them for the first time and they're almost dead and emotionless in the way they act, like, that would be some cool foreshadowing to have them present it in a way that isn't normal for that culture, for their warriors.
Yeah, absolutely. Have them behave, as you say, completely differently. I really like that one. White Tiger 225 says, I want my players to wake up in modern asylum after falling asleep in a fantasy world. This is an illusion by a sleep demon to try and get info from them. What are some clues I can drop that the modern asylum isn't real, so they don't kill me? I've asked them to trust me beforehand, so I did at least do that step.
So right there is a problem. You've already got their suspicion of.
Right.
You don't trust anyone to ask you to trust them. At least we don't in Jersey anyway.
Correct. Trust me. I know what I'm doing. I think also that something that you need to look at is, and a good film to actually look at is The Matrix. Go back to 2000 or 1999 when The Matrix first came out, and look at how they had to convince Keanu Reeves' character that the real world wasn't real. So your players are going into this knowing that they were playing a fantasy game, and now they're playing a modern game. So they're either going to suspect that you are doing some kind of illusionary magic, which is giving them metagame insight, or they're going to suspect that you've gone off your rocker and have decided to actually shift the whole game into a modern day setting. Which depends on what sort of relationship you have, or they have thought, okay, they're there until they do something and then they will get transported back. So you've kind of done like a weird 1980s Hollywood Yankee in New York kind of thing. Well, that was Mark Twain from even earlier than that, of course, but well, century earlier. But so I think you need to establish very early on that they are aware of something. Give them their goal. They need to know what their goal is so that they don't become frustrated and they don't feel like they've just been abandoned in this new setting where things don't work and things like that. That would be my suggestion. Scorch Claw says, my party's warlock, oh dear, doesn't want to be a warlock now that the patron has asked them to pay up with some bad actions. How should the patron punish them aside from taking away the power? How would you handle that, Dave?
So, I would try and figure out what the player's character loves, first of all, and I think a patron is going to try and strong arm them into doing something, because clearly, like, the patron wants them for a reason or a specific purpose, and oftentimes the patrons, you know, they're going to be thinking on a level that mortals aren't going to be able to possibly understand. So I would have him to do things to try and like threaten the player's character's interests in the game and not the player character themselves.
Absolutely wonderful advice. I think, you know, when you in the old days, when priests didn't follow their god's worship and paladins kind of broke their vows and those kinds of things, there was advice to say, you know what, you lose your power. Just straight up, you lose your power and you start down different paths and things. And I think the mindset is to move away from that because it does take away the entire character build. The fact that the player wants to stop playing their warlock because the warlock's patron is now asking for things, to me, that's a point and it's an opportunity for you to talk to the player more about exploring story opportunities than just going, oh, well, I don't want to play a warlock anymore because now there's consequences. I think you've got an opportunity there to educate the player in terms of, well, hey, listen, just because this is what's being asked, it doesn't necessarily mean that your character needs to agree. You definitely don't like it. So let's work through that from a story perspective. Let's see what your character does. Is your character going to ask for help from other characters? Is that patron going to go after NPCs that this particular player has formed bonds with? Those kinds of things. I think that's definitely something to look at.
Have you watched Sabrina the Teenage Witch on Netflix?
Not the remake. I did watch the one way back when where there was that animatronic cat.
So she's being tempted. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but she gets tempted throughout this thing. And like the way it's done really well. So you might want to walk back what the patron's asking and take smaller steps. Maybe you've asked too much too soon, and you need to move in increments. Or one of the other things you could do is have the patron ask for something bad. Player refuses to do it. Something worse happens. Maybe not to the players, maybe not even to people they care about, but because they didn't do what they were asked, like that bad thing actually would have stopped something worse.
There you go. There you go. That's a very, very interesting line to play. And I think, you know, one of the other things to bear in mind is you need to look at the level of your campaign. And by level, I mean not level 1 or 15, or it doesn't matter what system you're playing. But when I talk about the level of your campaign, the level of complexity that you're expecting from your fellow players, you might be wanting to run this intricate thing with lots of politics and lots of all kinds of things really going on in your campaign. But your players might be there for beer and pretzels type stuff where they're not having to do these giant moral dilemmas. They're not trying to do all these giant things. You might need to tone it back from that perspective as well. But anyway, that's just something to think about. Right, where are we? Next question. Gabriel says, good ways to help players be more creative. No, wait, that's two questions. I'm mixing them together now. Good ways to help players be more active and try more to role play. That question comes up a lot, doesn't it? How do we get more activity and more role play? Have you ever found a real solution to that?
Even earlier in the chat, I saw something go by where someone had asked, my players claim they want more role play, but all they do is attack everything. So if you want more role playing and less of combat or even exploration, you need to present more opportunities for them to role play. And not only that, at times there has to be a problem they need to solve that just can't be solved through violence.
Right, absolutely. Definitely something to look at. Also something to look at, and this is on the YouTube channel. These came out 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. The difference between a superhero and a sidekick player. Sidekick players are players who don't engage, who are happy to sit in the back and just kind of watch the story unfold and participate when they need to mechanically, rather than to participate narratively and the like. That's how they like playing the game, as opposed to superheroes who are active and involved and role-playing and creating character backstories and all that kind of cool stuff. So if the player is a sidekick, they're never going to step to the fore. So it doesn't matter what you do. They are going to be reserved. That's what they like about role-playing, is they like to be part of the story, but not to actively change or influence the story, if that makes sense. And I've had lots of players like that. Either that, or yes, give them more opportunities to roleplay. Give them lots more NPCs to talk to, and NPCs that don't try and backstab them or betray them. You've got to set up that trust too. Never underestimate that. Infinite Wanderer says, giant space dragons flown by regular dragons. Thoughts, comments, and concerns. Giant space dragons flown by regular dragons.
I don't know what to say to that. If you want to, sure, why not? Yes. Why do you have bigger dragons being flown by regular dragons? But no, I mean, anything can work. It's just what is the story you're trying to tell? What is the world you're trying to create? Where do those things fit in there? Do you have a place for them? Then go with it. Like whatever's fun in your game, do that. If you are having a blast doing things like that and your players like it, sure. Maybe you want your players to be the regular dragons flying the giant space dragons. Why not? If that's what your game's about, that's what your game's about.
That's it. Did you ever play Council of Worms? Did you come across?
No, but it was always one of the ones we were interested in playing. Right. Did you take inspiration from that?
I did. I definitely did. Council of Worms. It was a second edition. Second edition? I think it was second edition.
Yeah, second edition box set.
That's right, box set. I bought that the moment it came out. I love dragons. And in it, you played dragons. And you had little minions, elves and dwarves and things running around, but primarily you played dragons. And I had a big impression on me, obviously. I like dragons and the thought. So, yes, it can certainly work as you rightly said. If it works within your game, it works within your game. So use it, but make sure that it makes sense. Now, building on that is a question from Timothy Mathon. Hello, Timothy. How are you doing? Great artist. Very, very highly skilled artist is Timothy Mathon. And his question is, one of my players is in real life an engineer and often brings very advanced science facts into Dungeons and Dragons while no one else has scientific background. And it's very meta power gaming, irritating, and it isolates the rest of the players. Any tips? Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear. These always complicated questions. What do you do when people are bringing their real life experience into the game?
Well, one, what would their characters know about that? Does it make sense? I mean, we just shot a video about metagaming. And that's definitely one of those instances where it doesn't really belong. I've also seen people try to bring things in that are really weird from their personal experience that shouldn't be worked out in a game ever. You need permission to do things like that. So you have to. That's the point. Like you have to separate the character that you're playing from you, unless you're making a character that's basically modeled after you, which is okay, but they're still not necessarily going to know what you know. But the funny thing about that is, back in AD&D, it was like, well, consider whatever you would know is what your character would know, which is kind of the opposite of how we play now.
Absolutely. Of course, AD&D was almost before the time of computers, so what you knew was limited to library and what you had read. So I suppose there was an assumption of limited experience there. Yeah, I completely agree, and I think metagaming with your own knowledge, again, I think I've also done a video on that recently. Timothy, to be perfectly honest with you, there gets to a point where you need to say to the person, listen, this is a fantasy world, and I know that you really want to apply your physics to the situation, but it doesn't apply. Your character doesn't have that education. This doesn't happen. Yes, the trebuchet would collapse this way, and it wouldn't collapse that way. Yes, the bridge would do this, and it wouldn't do that. Yes, all that kind of stuff can come into play. But we are dealing with a world, especially in Dungeons and Dragons, where magic is involved. And I know it sounds like a hand-washy, oh, it's magic. And I've used that on many videos where it's like, there's a creature that breathes fire out of its mouth, for heaven's sakes, or electricity, or poison gas, or it flies and weighs several, the bumblebee sort of scenario comes into play. So I would just have a very quiet conversation, and I would listen. I would say to the person, listen, it's alienating you from the rest of the group, so bring it under check, or the group just doesn't want to play with you anymore. And I think that sometimes you get to that point. It's like you are too much. It really. I love
it. Peer pressure. Listen, I'm okay with it. It's the other guys.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the group, and you have to ask the rest of the group, because your other players might be going, "Oh, I love the engineer talk that this guy comes up with," and you're the one sitting there going, "I hate him. I hate him. I hate him." So I always advocate, ask the rest of the players, "Hey, what do you feel about so and so's constant metagaming?" Ask them, and if they're unhappy with it, then present it and say, listen, we need to talk about the metagaming, because that's what it is. And I've done a whole bunch of videos on metagaming, and I'm sure, as you say, Dave, you guys have done it as well. Go find those videos and play it. Send them links saying, hey, how you doing? Watch this video. Does it feel like you at all? Does it ring any bells? See how the man gets red when he talks about players who metagame? Do you get the hint? Probably they won't, sadly, in which case it's time to say au revoir. Okay, before I start ranting on about metagaming, Rick...
That guy, I gotta have a question for you. I want to know how many players you've thrown out of your games.
Not as many as I should have, I'll be honest. I have actually done. I'm not thrown out of the game. I often say, you know what, I don't think that it's working with the current group, so...
Not you, it's us.
Well, yeah, it's a case of maybe our styles are different. Maybe you should go and find another group that works better within your space. I have in my past, and I am open about this, I have sent players text messages going, "Oh, we're not playing tonight, sorry, no, the game was cancelled," and then sent to everybody else going, "The game is on, arrived, do not tell so-and-so that we're playing." I will say that I have done that in the past, so there we are. As Game Master's Vault has pointed out, I throw him out of his bloody office all the time because he won't shut up. I'm trying to work here, and he's just yakking away about role-playing and all this kind of stuff. It's like, anyway, there we go. We are crouching up on the half hour, which means that the writing challenge is coming up. If you don't know what that is, stay around for that. We've got some last few questions here before we go there. Dave, any last thoughts on your Kickstarter in terms of out-of-the-box encounters? Is this for... You mentioned that it was for beginning GMs and for more experienced GMs and that sort of thing. Do you, if you were a new GM, is this something that you think would have more value?
So yes, if you're a new GM, what you're gonna find is it's going to answer a lot of questions that you didn't think of. If you're a veteran GM, it's going to answer a lot of questions, and you're going to be like, oh yes, these are definitely things that could happen. And you're as a veteran GM, you're going to really appreciate the thought and depth of detail that Mike has put into these. when he takes into account the player's perspective. So that, I would say,
would be streaming, buffering back there. We're coming back.
Are we back?
I think so. We just had a technical glitch there. Yes, I see here my CPU is saying we are back on track. I'm just looking at YouTube. Definitely something going on there. Video output is low. YouTube is telling me that there might be a storm going on. I know there was a tornado watch or something happening.
Twitch looks good.
Twitch, yeah, they're about to hit the glitch. So if you're watching this, there's a glitch coming up.
In the future!
In the future, we can see the future. Yes, lots of me staring blankly at the screen going, is it down? Is it down? I'm not sure. So there's some
I was
questions.
just like rambling on, and all of a sudden I just see everything frozen and buffering.
Yes. So yeah, there was a bump there, and we are now back. So yes, so new GMs will find that, as you say, there are times when things are asked of one that it just doesn't make sense, catches you off guard. Now I see Restream has gone down, so I'm going to restart Restream. There we go. Now it's back. Okay, great. So just a bit of an internet hiccup there. White Tiger 225 real life calls. Thank you for being part of the stream. So there we are. Right, back on track. Back we go. Tornado warning.
All the joys of doing it live.
That's it. That's absolutely it. That is it. So my Restream chat has blanked itself out, so I have lost any previous questions. So if you did ask questions that I hadn't yet answered, please ask them again. I know there were lots of them coming through. I didn't realize how hot Minnesota got. I thought it was much further north. I was expecting sort of snow and a couple moose, and instead I get
not in August, not July.
This ridiculous heat. Anyway, so yeah, there we are. Right, we're going to go on to creative writing. It is the part of the show where we get creative. And of course, I have a little thing which I made, so I'm going to show it off, of course. If you really don't like them, let me know in the chat. So here we go. Right, creative writing. This is where you get to participate in the show. It's entirely up to you. Dave, if you want to participate, that's brilliant as well. Because creative writing is here to encourage the use of the little grey cells, the creativity that we all embrace as role players. And today it's something a little different. Now, Game Master's Vault, who you've seen in the chat without any doubt, he is busy editing the book that I'm busy writing, which is the complete guide to nautical campaigns, which was inspired by the Ghost of Saltmarsh game that I'm running. And in it talks about how to run ship battles and dealing with ship life, basically. And the book has been growing in size. It's currently 130 pages, and every time we edit it, we sort of add more stuff. And one of the things that Game Master's Vault has said is, well, we need to add in some monsters. Now, there are plenty of aquatic monsters running around in all of the various monsters books and things. It is just simply, it's native to our experience. However, it did get me thinking in terms of creating aquatic monsters. This is your writing challenge, and what I'm going to say is, if you participate in this writing challenge and you are creating something which you think is really awesome, if you think it's really, 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 really cool, we will look at it and say, well, maybe we will include it in the book. But I need you to give us permission to do that. So if you want to answer this and you want us to consider it, right, you may use this in your book, and then we will add it to the book. So have a look at that. It does have to be something particularly interesting and something that doesn't really exist already. So we've got Kraken and we've got sharks and the like, we've got orca, etc. But well, maybe there's something that's been missed. So as part of your role as the game master, and even as a player, coming up with different things, coming up with different experiences is part of the core. So I want you to design an underwater creature. An underwater creature. You're going to design an aquatic creature. But the aquatic creature needs to be big. As in really big. Give me a whale with 6 flippers and tell me that it corkscrews through the water. That's something interesting. It has a habit of boring through the hulls of ships. That's something interesting. Don't give me it's a giant shark. We've got megalodons. We know all about megalodons. Zombie merfolk. Alan Robinson, you and Game Masters Vault think very similarly. He's like, what about zombie merfolk? What about zombie Shah Khan? What about zombie this? What about zombie that? So, yes, this is an opportunity for you. Don't even worry about the book side of things. Think about an aquatic creature. Something that's going to give the players something interesting the next time they plunge down to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Did you ever watch the original 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea? I think it was Kirk Douglas who was the young strapping
many years ago. You know, this makes me think of Sarah Dallinger, our the cover artist for Out of the Box Encounters, because she's got another project that she's working on. It's kind of like a personal project of hers called Murder Mouth Zero Drag. Murder Mouth Zero Drag. That's right, because sharks have this Teflon coating on their teeth so that they have zero drag in the water, right? And so it's all about like alien aquatic life with, I think, an emphasis maybe on, you know, things that will murder you with their mouths.
I love it. They have Teflon on their teeth. I did not know that. I
believe that's what it is. I could be totally wrong, but the concept, whatever it is they have on their teeth, you know, prevents the drag on the water. So, might be a place to fish for inspiration. Both her and Crystal Sully have done some really amazing aquatic monsters.
Yes,
so that are definitely worth looking at.
Have you done aquatic adventures before?
Yes. Have I done exclusively? I don't think I have, but definitely at some point they get on a boat. One of my favorites it was more in space than aquatic, but it was kind of loosely based off of. And we would run a annual. Let me know if I'm getting too off topic for you.
No.
We would run an annual Thanksgiving Eve game, right? Other people in the States, they go out and drink that night. So I was like, well, let's do something on brand and let's play this game. And we would play a loosely, I use the term Spelljammer game. And one of the encounters, they encountered a bunch of Skrull, these space orcs, that were basically piloting this giant kraken that they were using as a ship. And, you know, it was mostly inert. But, you know, the kraken arms would reel back and they would load it with these like meteors, these boulders that they would throw it at the other ships, and they would hit and break open, and flower snails would come out of them and begin murdering the crew. So sometimes I like to just try and like do a different twist on, you know, existing things. Now the flower snails were by no means a threat to the players because they were so high level, but they're a threat to the crew, so they had to deal with them. And so they did by using telekinesis and just pushing them off the ship into space.
Right.
But here's where the true pain lies. Later, they realized that the shells were worth like 5,000 gold pieces apiece, and they all jettisoned them all up into space.
I like that. Flails. Oh, yeah, that whole thing sounds cool, and I like the fact that they kind of were throwing them away, and then only realized later on that there was some value. All right, so there's some interesting ideas that are coming through. There are some interesting ideas. A massive sea turtle that sinks sea ships by the seashore, says Alan Robinson. I think there's some alliteration happening there. Crab centaurs. I don't see that. It could be interesting. I'm going to go up here. LV Player Cliff says hybrid mind flayer shark. Highly intelligent psionic shark with tentacles, searches for prey with shark blood sense and psionics. Mind flayer shark. A flare shark. I think that could be interesting. Mark Anthony Smith says a massive clam that when open looks like a small island, but when it closes it becomes an underwater dungeon. I think that could be interesting too.
That's nice. We did a video with, you remember Zaratans from earlier editions?
Yes.
So we basically took that and do you remember Hollow World?
Yes.
And combined one of those with Hollow World, so that there was civilizations and cultures living inside the turtle shell, and when it would submerge, it was airtight. But then it could come up and so there was cultures and societies, and it was basically like a cavernous island that moved, with the Zaratan.
I like that. We've got some other things coming through here. Large sea urchins that launch their spikes, which remain tethered to their bodies and attempt to drag ships down. I think that's quite terrifying.
Sea urchins are underutilized, I think, in D&D.
Oh yeah. I mean, their poisons are quite dangerous. So yeah, little hand grenade type of things, I suppose, if you know how to throw them. A jelly lord, which is a swarm of jellyfish that have a hive mind and can Voltron into a gargantuan jelly. That I think could be quite terrifying. You have all these little cute jellyfish swimming around, and then suddenly they all sort of connect tentacles to each other and become this gigantic thing.
We actually had that monster in a product.
Oh, really?
The benevolent bestiary.
Yeah.
Is a product that we have. I know. Is it? You ever make something and have a working title for it for so long you forget the real name?
Yes.
So we have a bestiary of benevolent monsters on our channel, and there is a colony of jellyfish, psychic jellyfish, that they do cluster together, and once they cluster, they form kind of a bigger monster. Nice. Except for they're actually a good monster, and they try and stranded sailors and stuff like that.
I like that. We've got Alan Robinson giving us a were-whale. The front half of a huge humanoid and the back half of a whale. It's kind of like a merman on
giant
steroids.
Mermaid, yeah.
Giant mermaid.
Was it DC Comics, the character? It's basically a giant whale with arms and legs.
Oh dear God, that sounds terrifying. But as in a bad kind of weird... Moving on. Shadzar says, what about a phase barracuda? A phase cuda? I think that could be interesting. If they didn't have to swim in water, if they could swim in air, I think that could work quite well as well. I'm not going to carry on going up. There's some great options coming through here. The Tidal Juggernaut, a reskin of an Astral Juggernaut with a breath weapon that deals steam damage. We do have a steam-dealing monster, but it's actually a ship. The book contains 27 different types of ships, specifically for non-human races. Aquatic dragons, yes, they use telepathy. So there's some interesting things coming through. Now, this is not the completion of creative writing, because there's so many things. Sea flumps. I've never been a fan of flumps, to be perfectly honest. And a sea flump, to me, is just a jellyfish, I think.
Pretty much.
So,
what's a jellyfish out of water in D&D? A flump.
A flump. A thunder spear, a giant lamprey-like creature that uses a cone of thunder to stun its prey. I think that's quite fun. 10-meter anglerfish. It has a wounded maiden as a lure. There we are. I think that could be fun.
I like the crabberg. Kind of digging that.
A crabberg, a giant ice crab that can disguise itself as an iceberg and walk on water. That is interesting, Angus. Thank you for that.
It's a great ambush creature. You think you're steering around the iceberg, and then all of a sudden it lashes out and grabs your ship.
That's what happened to the Titanic. That's what happened. Really, it does. Cumberland Sausage says, a giant toad that literally absorbs small seas. Wait, what? A giant toad that literally absorbs small seas and unleashes them defensively. So it drops a small ocean, a small sea. Interesting. I thought it was going to absorb sea cucumbers, perhaps some sort of fire out.
I think we need something. I think we need something that vomits jellyfish, like a breath weapon.
Oh my God. Okay. Alan Robinson suggests a mega displacer piranha. As a matter of fact, the book does contain something called a Piranok. And a Piranok is basically my thieving of a very famous little creature that runs around on the shores in a very famous setting, which I won't mention for copyright reasons. But a Piranok is basically a piranha-like humanoid thing. Piranha are a lot of fun. I actually saw some piranha the other day. I was at an aquarium fish shop thing. There were these little piranha. They're very, very, very small. They take a very long time to eat me, which made me kind of happy that I wouldn't die instantaneously. So there we are. Now, all of the ideas that you have listed so far are fantastic. There are lots of cool ideas coming through. Part of being creative in terms of creating creatures that have value, that exist, a mobile coral reef, for example, as they come through, part of doing this is then creating the ecology in which they live, creating the space in which they then work. So Sharknado, for example, it's not actually the whirlpool, it's not a tornado whirlpool thing, it's an entity that spews out sharks. How would that have come about? What's its origin story? So having these things like the giant clam that is an island that consumes just massive amounts of things, to me, that's a being that lives on a timescale of thousands of years and allows vegetation and stuff to... So I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know if there's a storm outside or if there's something going on. Anyway, we've got some interesting suggestions coming through. Sharknado could be a remnant of a god's war and it's still going on. We've got things like that happening. Teachers468, thanks for being part of the stream, and we thank you for being here. Good luck with whatever it is that you've got to do. Giant Nautilus with electrical tentacles, says Panda Powerfist. I like that. Again, now unpack it. Put it in its place. Give it a situation. Give it something that allows it to live. That's how we expand these things. That's how we make them come alive. Okay, so there is that to have a look at. Now, whilst you are doing that, whilst you're figuring out how it happens, how this thing survives, how it works, how it lives, there's a lot of lag going on. I'm not entirely sure what's happening. I am now going to throw this out to you. We've been having some debates. This is very early stuff, so it's a preview for you. I'm going to show you a series of images. I hope this works. But I'm going to show you 3 images. These are the covers that we are thinking of for the book, for the Complete Guide to Nautical Campaigns, and I would like your feedback on it. We always like feedback on stuff just to see what's going on. There's a bit of a debate happening here in the Twin Cities studio where I'm sitting with Game Master's Vault as to which one we should go with. Maybe we should go with any of these. You tell me. So I'm gonna. Oh, it's popped up immediately. I'm gonna resize this so you can see what we're talking about. So there we go. Oh, wait. Let's grab that there, and I'm going to put it over myself because you don't need to see me. So there are the options as they was scrolling through. I'm going to move that up a little bit more. There we are. All right. So there's one cover. There's a second cover. We're going to call that option number 1. Now, of course, it's not cycling because I'm waiting for a cycle. There's option number 2, which has got the sextant and a compass and that kind of stuff. And then finally, we're going to move on to option number 3. Option number 3 with the very similar imagery to the show. Dave's going for number 3 there. That's option number 1, cycling through. Whilst you have a look at those, let's just look at some of these things. The displacer piranha harass shipping lanes in packs of 4 to 8, chewing holes in their hulls. I like that. Large tuna type fish that is known for dragging fishing ships on. There we go. Crabberg. Yeah, I do like the Crabberg. A zombie Crabberg ship helmed by Merfolk Necromancer. Wow. There we are. That's very, very complicated. Lots of opinions here. Number 2, which is the one that's currently on screen. Now we're on to number 3. Panda Powerfist says number 3. Athena Gary says 3. Angus Boys says 3. A5 says 3. Serpent's Embrace says 3.
I think 3 if you made it a little less busy.
Yeah.
Dynamite.
3 looks too busy, says Alan Robinson. They prefer number 1. Thumb Ugly says number 2. You see, this is the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful nature of humans. We all have different things that we like. Graxus says a giant shelled eel that rests on the bottom of the blackest depths disguised as a collection of rocks. It feeds off of creatures with bioluminescence in order to produce its own food. I think that's really cool, and it will move up to shallow waters to hunt. Piranha whale, I think, is just a megalodon, but I do like that Daduta. A shelled eel is interesting. 3 seems to be popping up quite often, as does number 1. 2 is there sometimes as well. So yeah, these are the decisions that face us. Brandon Sim says 1 is meh, 2 is quite nice, and 3 is bad. I choose number 2.
I look at it this way. Number 1, if I was walking down an aisle of a bookstore,
Right.
that would not jump out at me.
Right.
Number 2 is kind of have this a simple elegance to it. I do like number 3, but it is busy. They're not wrong there. I think if you pick certain elements of number 3 and focused on them, that could be really tight.
That could be tight, as they say. There we go. I like that one. It's tight. All right. So thank you for weighing in on that. Those of you that are following along in terms of hoping that these homebrew rules come out soon, you now know the trials that we go through in terms of trying to determine what's best for you. So getting back to these creative creatures, an amphibious salt-breathing yellow dragon with a breath weapon that causes dehydration. It's causing death and destruction in the elemental plane of water, and the heroes must get rid of it. Interesting. A school of fish swum by in the turquoise shallows just off the coast. A diver watches as one fish grazes against a nearby reef, becoming stuck. She watches in horror as the reef quickly envelops it. That's an interesting one, TC. A living reef. Very, very nice. A sailing ship that is a zombie by itself. Yes, I like that one too. I think that's sort of fun. Gigantic zombie Portuguese man of war. Have you been stung by a man of war? I hope not. You got better.
I have not, that's for sure.
Yeah, I haven't Portuguese man of war, and definitely not. And blue bottles I've managed to avoid as well. It happens when you don't swim in the ocean. Spawn of dark water, a water elemental that has been infected by venomous algae. I do like algae. We do have Saracosa, which is a form of Saragossa, which is a type of weed that grows in the oceans. Currently there's a Saragossa weed spread in the Gulf of Mexico, spreading all the way to Africa. Quite disturbing if you know what that stuff causes. Okay. Creative writing, we looked at creating an underwater creature and trying to figure out how it fits best into the world and how it lives and how it survives. Dave, did you guys create new monsters? I think you mentioned you created new monsters for your Kickstarter.
Yes, because when we originally created it, we didn't know we were turning it into a product, and we definitely did not worry about things like the legality of SRD. So by necessity, we were forced to get creative and make some new monsters.
I see. Can you give us a hint of one of the monsters?
You know what? Off the top of my head, I don't remember because there's been a bunch of revisions.
Right.
And even though, so it was a weekly series. The core book we're putting out is 30 encounters, and we're up to like 40 or 45, I think, now in the book. So there's been a bunch of revisions. So it's like, which version am I thinking of? And,
right.
And honestly, I deal more with the kind of like the logistics of things, where Ted and Doug are more familiar with the material itself, if I'm being completely honest.
Absolutely. And I know as well, I look at the book that we're working on, I'm like, did we include that? Did we cut that out? Did we leave it in?
Yeah.
Was that a dream that it was added or it wasn't added? I was convinced, we were working on how to calculate. Maybe you can actually answer this question, or if you're watching, you can answer this question. In terms of trade, do you ever come across players wanting to trade goods from one city to another, and then kind of going, how do we work out how much they should earn from that trade? Do you sort of do persuasion checks and bartering and that kind of stuff? How do you?
Yeah, I would absolutely. Well, one, I would ask them to role play it, right, and then from there, I'd either make a decision or say make a roll and then make a check. like a lot of times, I guess if they do it and they do really well, I mean, I won't ask for a check,
Right.
and I might then like make them have a roll to see like how much above the baseline they get or something along those lines. But for the most part, yeah, absolutely, it's a part of the game. And if they've shown interest in that part of the game anyway, they probably want that to a certain degree.
Right. Right.
So sometimes it works for them and they get more, and sometimes they get less because of bad role playing or bad rolls.
Right, absolutely. I mean, in my experience, when players get given ships, ships open up, suddenly you can transport 50 tons of goods or 100 tons of goods, and potentially that's a lot of money. And I've had some players who have gone, I don't care about that at all. And I've had other players who, okay, we're setting up a trading empire and we want to know what's good supply and demand. And, if we take glass from here and we sell it, and you kind of go, that's a different kind of game.
Well, what's funny? Like Doug would tell me about his home game where he's playing Spelljammer, and like his players would get into, they'd be so excited when they're like ready to hire a new crew, and then they're like, we got to do the contracts, and we got a new crew. They're gonna have a cabin. We're gonna have to go shopping and get the furniture and stuff for their cabin. So like they were like geeking out on the fact that they're almost like running a small business. And they really wanted to role play and do those things.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons why I appreciate Game Master's Vault editing the book is because he raises those kind of questions. He's like, well, how much does a jail cost if you want to install that in your ship? I'm like, who cares how much a jail costs? If you want a jail on your ship, you've got it. And he's like, no, because what if we want 2 jails? Why would you want 2 jails on you? Well, you might want 2 jails.
And then he's like, well, what about 3 jails?
Right. So, and what I like about that though is it kind of gets you going. You go, well, if you're making the complete guide, then that needs to be part of it. So, and I suppose that's how you end up with something like Matthew Colville's Strongholds book, where it's like, well, you asked, it's there, and hopefully it's going to enhance your game. Anyway, we are getting to the end of tonight's show. Some cool ideas: a sentient acidic ink cloud, reskin of the gelatinous cube for the ocean. I kind of like that idea. We've got the thunder spear, which is the deep sea apex predator, special mucus coating that hides it from sonar and echolocation, mechanical squids with the head as glass and in an airtight. And inside the airtight glass is where a civilization is based. A crab hag, crawling tentacles. Ooh, there we go. I like crawling tentacles. A lot of players don't like tentacles.
And some of them just pretend they don't like tentacles.
Some pretend they don't like tentacles. There we go. A5 Paper points out that Acquisitions Incorporated has just released a book all about Acquisitions Incorporated. Well, yes, that does make sense. Actually, I should be getting my copy of that book fairly soon. It'll be arriving in Japan when I'm not there. So, yay for that. Anyway, guys, I cannot thank you enough. Dave, thank you so much for being part of the show tonight. I think you've kept us all entertained and given us some great insight, very different from what I normally do as well. So I really thank you for taking the time to do that. And I hope you.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I was wondering, what the heck are we going to talk about for 2 hours?
Oh, please, it's me. Good Lord, you just have to ask me, how are you doing? And you'll get a 2-hour lecture. So I'm actually worried about Gen Con. It's like, I'm going to have to think of some kind of way to stop talking, because otherwise people are all going to... I'll be walking around Gen Con with this little crowd, this cloud of no people, because they'll go, don't talk to that one because he doesn't stop. Anyway... I look forward to seeing you at Gen Con, Dave. And if you are going to be at Gen Con, any of you who are watching are going to be at Gen Con, come and find us. We've got cool stuff, those buttons and badges, and just come and chat and share ideas, because I do love talking to people. We're running a Save or Dice game on the Friday night at 3 p.m.
Yes.
If you haven't booked for that, that should be a lot of fun. That's the Oasis. Well, it's the Save or Dice team. I believe I'm going to be running that game, and well, that's all up and very secretive. I can guarantee you this, however, it's going to be a lot of fun, because if I'm running the game, it means that the players are not going to be rolling their own dice. That's all I can tell you. We've got an audience. We might as well use them. Anyway, that should be a lot of fun. There we go. You got a spoiler, Dave.
Some people may or may not be wearing a potato sack.
That's right. Some people may or may not be wearing a potato sack. Absolutely.
If you guys don't know, don't ask.
Yes, don't ask. Just compliment her and say that it looks nice.
Fantastic.
So
that color matches your eyes.
There we go. Right, until either Ghost of Saltmarsh, which airs tomorrow at a slightly earlier time than usual. Check the listings to see when exactly that is airing. But until Ghost of Saltmarsh tomorrow, or until next week's stream, I want to thank you all for participating, for all being here, for giving us your wonderful comments, for the subscriptions, the bits and the donations and the super chats that have come through. I really do appreciate that. If you haven't yet gone to go and check out the Kickstarter that Nerdarchy is running, go and have a look at that. Out of the box encounters. It is really worth getting into if you, pretty much if you roleplay. So there we are. Until next time, however, I wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming.